we got today, Fred?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about my Pixel 6 Pro. Basically, what really got me to decide to look into this, my wife has a Pixel 4a, and I started noticing because she takes a lot of photos of our granddaughter. And she started really getting some good captures.
Turn this around for a second because we're going to show these too, but that's kind of good.
So what I decided to do was take this out because once I got it, I wanted to take some decent photos when I didn't have my regular DSLR camera in my hand.
Yeah, the best camera is the camera you got with you, right? And with it, even if it's a smartphone.
And I won't say anything bad about what I consider the other two major contenders because they make a good phone and they take excellent pictures, and that is the Apple iPhone
newest one,
13. My daughter has that. She takes some very nice photos. And of course, the Samsung, I think it's called the M22 is their latest, but even the model before that took excellent pictures. What they've done is they put multiple lenses on both of these. Well, they've done the same thing
out there
on the Pixel. This has got a case on it. Let me take the case off for just a second. You'll be able to see a little bit better.
I don't have the XS, but I have the XS, not the latest, but it's the same thing. It has multiple lenses.
So this has multiples going across this way. And the Pro has one more lens than the regular Pixel 6. So what they did is they decided to just give this a few more features. So I went out and started taking a lot of different photos with it because I said, all right, let's see what it'll do. And I went with the type things that I like to photograph.
Now, does the Pixel 6 do RAW, or is it...
It will do RAW. It'll do JPEG. So it's not a situation where you have... And a lot of times what it'll do is that even if you think it's set for JPEG, it'll tell you, no, I've got one of each. Do you want both? Do you just want to process one? And it has editing built in. It has a lot of different things that you would like in a phone. I'm not going to try to get into the nuts and bolts because I'm not trying to sell you on the Google phone versus Apple versus Samsung. I'm just saying it's a contender out there. And of the three, the price point is the most reasonable. It's not as expensive as the other two phones. This is not to say that they're not worth the money, but in my case, I've been using Android phones for a while. I thought about going with the Samsung.
I guess this is XS, but I was just going to show the size difference too, that it is considerably larger.
It's larger, right. And
it's like, I guess, what Apple's now calling
the 6 Pro
Max.
is may be just a tiny bit larger than the regular Pixel 6. Both of them are going to take good photographs. I've got several that I wanted to see, so we're going to show you some photos here. And the first one, I did some collages of these. The first one is a combination of a bleeding heart on the right-hand side, and on the other side is a Brazilian
look like
flower.
A shrimp plant back here.
Right. So you see those two together. Very nice. And because of the depth of field, because of the way the lens is set on this, the depth of field
I do notice that,
nice background.
What's the first one here?
That's the button flower, the Brazilian button flower.
The button
purple.
flower that the leaves in the background has, you got some nice bokeh on it.
Yeah, and the same thing with the bleeding heart. So I really like that feature because these were just, I walked out to different areas and said, all right, let me take a picture of this. And all handheld. Here I've got several more where you and I decided to take a trip to the Florida Botanical Garden.
I should mention that Fred likes to take pictures of flowers.
Oh, yeah.
A
lot of plant photography for me.
For your background.
What's interesting is that the one flower up at the top, top left, basically there's a bee on there, and what impressed me is that guy was not staying very long. He was flitting all around, and this managed to grab the action very quickly. What this will do, like the other two phones, is it'll take several. Because what you don't have a shutter on these. You basically just have a sensor.
Right.
And it's like a video camera.
So it's a rapid fire.
So it's actually just, you're in live view. Think of that on your mirrorless or your DSLR. If you're in live view, you're seeing what's actually happening. What this will do is when you say, all right, I'm pressing the shutter, it will grab not just one photo, it'll grab several, and it'll take the best one out of it. and give that to you. And what's funny is that you can actually see them in motion.
You know what the frame rate is?
That's a good question. That I haven't looked at. This is just kind of a first look where I
wonder if
wanted to
it's
see
a
what my
true
results
video,
were.
30 frame or 24 maybe.
I'm thinking it could be that,
Probably.
but what it does is just take, anywhere from about 4 to 6
It just
photos. Grabs several, and then what happens is that it tries to pick the best because it's trying to eliminate camera shake. It's trying to eliminate, not great focus, fuzzy focus, things like that. And every one of these came out sharp and beautiful. I was really impressed with the quality, and like you say, the way it handles the background. Then I've got a couple of when we were
I know where that
walking
is.
around. Yep.
It's
And,
with the Largo
a little slider, and then the little
Central,
green
Central
heron.
Park Reserve, I think it's called.
And, these are just photos of opportunity, and it did a good job. The color and the definition are nice. And again, with the little green, he was flitting around, so it had to take the multiple. Whereas with the turtle, it didn't really take that many because he was just kind of
well,
there.
he's a turtle.
He was not moving very fast. And so
he's
the
a
camera,
turtle.
basically the camera and the hardware and software that's in there, the firmure,
This turtle would not
we'll try
win the
to
race.
adjust. No, we'll try to adjust for the situation, which I'm sure the other cameras do. So, you're just getting you're getting the same results with a camera that, to me, and phone that was a little bit less expensive, less of an investment.
Now these here, that one on the left looks like a rock, but that's a seed pod.
Those are two different seeds. Those are actual seeds themselves. They came out of the pod, and I'm not even going to say what kind they are right now. I'm going to let people guess on that one. I'll talk about it on the next.
Yeah.
And say what it is.
Put it down in the comments if you think
Yeah,
you know
put
what
it in
it
the comments
is.
if you think you know. I will say this: it is tropical, or subtropical, basically. And it was a plant from a good friend's house where I go and sometimes photograph. They have their front and backyard look like a miniature botanical garden, and they just have a lot of plants around there. Some in bloom, some in seed, and it's very interesting to watch. I let these completely dry out, and then decided to photograph them on that gray background, as you see. So cool stuff. But this guy really did a decent job. And then I have 2 more that I wanted to compare low light. That the subject in there is called a slap top cajon, and it's a little musical instrument, percussion. The first one I took with the regular camera mode, and you can see it's dark because I was in very low light on purpose, and it did the best it can. So then I said, all right, let me try the night mode. And the night mode lit it up quite nicely.
Going in to see, and really I'm going to zoom in on that. There's really no noise really as such showing up. So
No, it did a good job on that. And even this one, there's not a lot of noise. Even it just did its best with the light that it had, and it couldn't compensate until I put it into what they call night mode.
well, with that one, if you boosted it, I guarantee there would be a lot of noise.
There would be noise in it. So that's nice to know. And the night mode, basically you're hand holding, and it has a little timer, and when the timer goes, you've got your photo. So what it'll try to do is compensate again for shake, but you got to be careful. Try to be a little bit more steady with that. If you were going to use a tripod, that might be the reason to have that with this, because I noticed I took a few photos of it, because with like anything else, there's always going to be a little bit of a learning curve.
Yep.
You've got to get used to the nuances of the device. And I'm going to be honest, you and I both know, even with DSLR or mirrorless cameras, no 2 of them are going to be exactly the same with the way that they work for you.
That's right.
You've got to get used to their nuances and then apply your knowledge and take your photos and get your best shot.
How about cons, downsides of using the phones? Versus a DSLR.
Well, the bottom line with that is that it's not a camera designed
It's running away.
for
It's
sliding. It's not a phone that I think is designed for heavy macro work. What I had to do to get those close-ups is basically it has, when you are looking through the lens, it starts with 1x. You can actually go to 0.7, which is wider, or you then can go to 2x, 4x, 8x.
And there's supplement lenses you can buy to put on the phones.
You can.
However, those go in front of the actual lenses on it, and as a result, you're going to get there's just no way you're going to get any better quality on it. So
No.
the advantage of DSLR in that case is the fact that you can actually change the physical lens, which at least at this point you can't
Right.
do on any of the smartphones.
And trying to put the lenses on something like that when you have multiple camera lenses built in, you're blocking one
Yep.
to get the use of the other. And each of these devices, each of the three devices, tends to go to the one that it needs as you tell it, all right, I need to go closer. And it may use, instead of using the wide angle lens, when you tell it, I want 4X.
Yep.
And that's, by the way, a lot of the flowers, what it'll do is if you try to get too close, it'll actually come up and says you need to stand back to get better focus.
Right.
So if you get too close, you hit the point where the camera cannot
Can't focus.
focus, and you have to back up. So what you do is you compensate. You're not using a macro technique. You're using a close-up, like as if I had my 18 to 400.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting closer to it. But the upside is that it does a great job on giving you good bokeh in the background, I think.
I'm going to give another con.
Okay.
Basically, sensor size.
Yes.
Sensors on the phones, and they have to be, they're very, very small compared to a DSLR,
Yes,
which
yes.
can be an APS-C, which is a half frame or a full frame, or I guess you could go even larger with the medium format, which
Yes.
is an even bigger sensor. The bigger the sensor, the better it is in low light, the
Yes.
lower the noise levels. So these smaller sensors, even though they have done incredible engineering jobs on them to improve them, they're still never going to be as good as a
No.
larger sensor.
And the bottom line, they're all fixed lenses.
Yeah.
Everything on there is a fixed. Like I said, you can try to put something external on it, but if you've noticed with the multiple lens camera or multiple lenses that they're installing in
By
these
the way,
phones,
the zoom in
that
these
market
is a
seems to have
digital
dropped
zoom.
away.
It's,
Oh, yes.
It's actually blowing up the picture. It's not actually zooming the physical lens.
unless, like I said, unless it goes to, as you can see, there's three lenses here.
Well, that's not
So
real zoom. That's just you're switching
It'll switch.
the optics. Yeah.
Right, it switches the optics. It's not a true zoom, but then it allows you to be closer
Right.
without having to go. But then beyond the point, it goes strictly digital. I noticed when I went 8 and 10x, I knew I was in digital. At 4, it looked like I was using the close-up lens. And the one thing I noticed, as you said, there's a point where you're going to start getting noise or pixelation or other things in it. I won't really even, I'll back up from the noise. It would tend to be more pixelation. You're going to get pixelation. You're just not going to get the quality of photo if you just try to zoom in too much.
Yep.
I've seen people go to, and by the way, I've got my ball club duds on today because I'm anticipating that we've got our first season opener at the Tropicana field.
Yep.
So we're looking forward to that. But I've seen people stand up with their smartphone, and you can tell they're trying to, because they're doing a little stretch and they're trying to zoom in, and that's using a digital zoom. And I don't know how good the quality that's going to be of that ball player or of what's going, especially if they're trying to catch
Yeah, because
picture
again, it's a
in
digital
motion.
zoom. It's actually blowing up the
Right.
digital image, not the zoom. I want to give another pro in here from my background as a video maker. The video on these phones is also quite
Yes.
good, and there has actually been a couple of commercially released films that I know have been filmed with the Apple phones. So don't neglect the video side of these too. And besides that, even though I know TikTok and some of these want you to use your phone like that, don't do that.
Well,
Should be this way.
if you have to use it for social media, there it is. But otherwise, come on, folks.
My advice is don't do it for social media. Do it, make a real film.
And there's other ways to post produce. I mean, yes, you can do a certain amount on the phone itself for either still or video. And they're a third party. I still have
Oh yeah, there are a lot of apps that will actually give you
Perfect
more
Clear.
control over. Yes.
and there's something
Of course, you got
interesting.
Lightroom and Photoshop.
I don't know
now
if you
on
can
the
see that
phones.
at all. Unnecessary zoom here. You see the little right up in that corner. That's the Luminar Share. If you have the Luminar program, you can scan the QR code on it, and it'll allow you to take photos off your phone and put it right into Luminar on your desktop or laptop computer.
Of course, Lightroom has that the cloud service.
Yes.
If you're using that,
A lot of people will use Lightroom, and now you have Photoshop Express,
Yep.
which has an app that goes on that. And as I said, I have Perfectly Clear on here. That's one I've had for ever and ever.
Also some apps that allow you to take more control over the phone
Yes.
itself for taking pictures.
There's one called First Light that's still around.
Yep.
And it actually will help me control. But what's interesting is I haven't had the chance to experiment with the third-party apps that will actually let me take the photos with them. I think that's interesting because do we need that with what you have on these three types of brand name phones, or is everything that you've got built in except for your post-production?
One I've used for filming is called Filmic Pro on the iPhone. I think that's available for the Android as well, but that gives you a lot more control over the video side, including the audio recording on it. So anyway, that's...
Well, the bottom line for me is that this is my camera when I don't have my camera with me. And which is
sometimes,
nice.
I don't know about you, even when I have my camera, sometimes it's just a lot easier and quicker to pull out the phone than to get the
everything
DSLR set up. So
if I'm somewhere where I don't have any other photography equipment, now I feel like I have an instrument here that will allow me to take really decent photos. And the idea too is that your knowledge is going to come into play because you've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's not the camera,
No.
it's the photographer, so just keep that in mind.
When you look at some of the stuff that some people do, the quality is very good. You look at other people and unfortunately there's that misconception that because you've got one of those three brand name smartphones with cameras in them, that you're suddenly a expert photographer. You're an expert, and every picture is going to be amazing.
Well, you know what an expert is? An X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So, on that note,
leave it to Jim. Yes. I think it's time that we ended this little piece.
Yes. So anyway, don't be afraid, even if you've got a good DSLR, to use your smartphones. They're doing a better job, and each version that comes out is a little bit better than the previous.
Well, not only the hardware, but the software and firmware that they put into this. They keep adding in more and more features. The one thing that's beautiful is that many of the features are included with upgrades.
Yeah.
When they upgrade your firmware, when they just send you a small upgrade, they actually suddenly go, hey, look, there's a beta feature in my camera software now. So I think that's cool.
Yep.
I think that's amazing.
Leave your comments below on what you think. And if you have a favorite...
And if you've got a favorite photo that you've taken with your cell phone, share it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if you
put it on our Facebook page.
If you do that, we would actually show it on the next podcast.
Yep. So
very
thanks
cool.
for watching.